you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join doctors Joanne and Aaron as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
In this episode of Create Meaning in Medicine, I'll be interviewing Dr. Joanne Sotelo on the topic of quiet quitting. And this is a topic that's gaining a lot of media and attention, not necessarily in a good way. And I can't wait to dive deep into this topic with you today, Joanne. And I would love to hear from you. How do you define quiet quitting?
Thank you for asking the question. Recently, I was at a doctor meeting and this topic was brought in. And, I think naive me was thinking, oh, that's doesn't apply that much to us in medicine because we're committed. And so many people agree. Like there were a lot of nods, like people nodding their heads yes in agreement. And it's good to define it. I love defining these concepts because sometimes these concepts kind of they just become popular and we use them. And I also like how it overlaps with the things that we talk about in terms of burnout prevention and all of that. And it's when we think of quiet quitting, we start thinking of just the quitting part. And a lot of us physicians were very committed. Like it's not like we want to quit and just get another job. But more dangerous than that is when we disconnect emotionally, when our heart is not there anymore, when we're just disappointed, frustrated, drained, disillusioned. And then we continue to show up because we always do, but we show up kind of halfway. We do our bare minimum, we check off the boxes, and we're not as committed. We're not coming from our hearts. We're not summoning the best of who we are. And it's just keeps on going because then it gets exponentially worse because we also miss out on the things and can recharge our batteries, give us a nice sense of self. And I see it as a path, kind of like what we talk about drugs, kind of like a gateway drug into worse outcomes later on. And if you feel this way, it's a time to pause and really dig in and think of what's going on and how we can change that. It is an important topic. I'm glad that we're bringing it in this podcast.
And I love those points that you shared. And I'm wondering if I'm experiencing quiet quitting and I don't even recognize it, how can I become more aware and what are some more ways that we see it showing up?
And this could be a personal answer. But listen to some of the things that we hear a lot. So there's an emotional detachment. It's like we don't care as much. And it might not be to the extreme as we talk about in burnout, where you become cynical, but you care, you can tell it's kind of dialed down. You're not as enthusiastic about what you do. You have a loss of motivation to improve, lead, or grow. I know that I'm one, sometimes a little too much. Like I like to raise my hand a lot and say yes to things. And to be very honest, I found myself at times being like, no, I'm not adding anything else to my plate. And it wasn't necessarily always from a place of good boundaries. I can recognize that sometimes it was from a place of, I can't, like I just don't have much in me to add to the team, which is very sad because it's out of character for myself. And yes, it can go to that extreme of being cynical. There's a lot of frustration, a lot of disappointment. You kind of avoid a lot of the extra things that you would normally. And again, it's kind of the other side when we talk a lot about not overdoing in boundaries, but the question here is also thinking of what's leading the behavior. Are you protecting yourself, being very intentional about your time and energy and setting a boundary? Or are you in the, it sounds ugly, but in a I don't care. And then you might start fantasizing about thinking of other jobs. It's sad but very telling when I hear some of the women I coach talking about, can I just work at a Starbucks? And it sounds funny, but it's not funny. And of course, nothing wrong with working at a Starbucks, but it anything else but practicing medicine, it seems like a fantasy because you're just really looking at anything but. And it's sad because right, like then this leads to so many other problems. And we what we do, I always said that I feel very fortunate that w- it's work that I love doing. I love my work as a psychiatrist, but sometimes this kind of external things get in our way, and it steals away from that joy and passion of taking care of our patients, not just for the patients, but what it does to us. So again, a lot of examples here, but it's that's what's important, because sometimes these words, it's kind of when we talk about burnout, and we talk about a lot of times people don't resonate with the word burnout, but yet when you talk with them, they have 80% of the symptoms, but it's the word doesn't feel like that. And this is the same here. Like the quiet quitting sounds so dramatic, but think of how many times do you just want to go in and out. You wish half of your patients no showed, and you don't want anyone talking to you. Right? We all have those days, but when that becomes your norm, those are all red flags that you really need to start looking at within yourself.
I love how you say that when that's your norm. And also, what are you seeing around you? What's the community around you? And if everybody's in a quiet quitting state, then how does that affect your perception? You're like, oh, I'm just acting like everybody else in my clinic, at my hospital, in my organization. And yet, if we're not aware that that's not a very healthy way to be, my hope is that by us raising your awareness on this podcast, you might start being a little bit more critical of what are you surrounding yourself with? How big of an impact can you have on your culture, on your surroundings? And with that, I would love to hear from you, Joanne. What is the big impact of quiet quitting, especially in medicine?
Such an important question, because sometimes it is a symptom of a bigger misalignment in terms of what's important to you, your values, your purpose, your energy. This is why it's so important to really look inside, and why we're doing this podcast, to bring clarity and awareness in so many of these important topics. I think also something that affected me personally is that it kind of tapped into my sense of self, my identity, my self-concept, because I've always taken pride in how caring I am and that I like to give the extra mile. Not always a good thing, but I'm very committed. In seeing myself disconnect, right? Like if being very honest here, affected me. So, and I was able to catch it, and thank goodness that I do, right? Like I have my coach and helped me through these things as well. And that I was able to just make other decisions of other things that I stopped doing so that I could really show up in the way I wanted to show up. But it took a lot of humility and honesty within myself. And of course, then more obvious of how it can affect patient care, team dynamics, how you're showing up with your family, relationships. And to go to an extreme, it really drains you in all aspects, physically, emotionally, mentally, and it dulls your inner voice for yourself and others. And it can get you into this survival mode that definitely can lead to worse outcomes that we've talked here, like depression, anxiety, burnout. So, again, so important that we're being very honest here about this topic.
So powerful. All those things you said. I took so many notes here. And I wonder, as usual, we always want to know not just what's going on in medicine, and if it's not a positive thing, what can we do about it, Joanne? What can we do about quiet quitting?
And it's important to reconnect with what's your why. What's your purpose? What do you love about your job? And again, I am using parallels in the research and information that we know about burnout, because it's kind of two sides of a similar coin. When if you can connect with about 20% of what you love in your work, it can recharge your batteries enough for the rest of the time. Again, without minimizing that sometimes there are real reasons why you're in that quiet quitting mode. but so important for you to reconnect on why you do what you do. And if there are things that are no longer in alignment, that was part of my journey of making big decisions of things that I let go of. And then what remained, it like I found a new sense of purpose. It was a beautiful thing that I didn't even know I needed. And I started feeling it. And it was very powerful. So that's one, definitely. Reclaim your why. And I would love to recommend that you can journal about it because it's even if it's a voice note, because we're not used to tapping into that work of really connecting with our purpose and our mission. A second one, which we talk in this podcast a lot, is create growth space. Really connect with you feeling better within yourself, even if it's not related to work. Because if you are more grounded, if you have that nicer sense of self, you will show up better anywhere. And it's to the benefit of yourself and everyone around you, regardless of what's going on at work. A third one, which I love, and we should do an episode just on this, is address energy leaks. What are those things that drain your tank? Or worse, I like the analogy of creates little holes in your tanks. So it doesn't matter what you're adding to it, it's in constant drain. And again, this could be at work, but it could be in your personal life too. And then you check in on how are these things making you feel mentally, emotionally, physically, cognitively. This is, again, that by itself is a huge topic, and one that we love, that we talk so much about, because if we can boost our energy, that capital E energy, everything is better. So again, we're talking about things that are very personal, but can create that nice ripple effect everywhere in your life. And also, I love talking about this. Redefine what success is. It could be that the expectation that's given to you at work it's not one that you are in alignment with anymore. And you might not have full control of them saying, no, my definition of success is not RVUs, right? Or patients seen or money, but you can still redefine how you're gonna connect back to the work, connect back to you, and feel good about what we do, because what we do is so important. And the last one here, which I think we say this in every single episode, ask for support and have connection and community. Like you were saying, Erin, in the last episode, that a lot of times it's kind of what we see around us, unfortunately, becomes the norm, and our brain will mimic more things at a lower bar than on a higher bar, meaning like a lower expectation. And it's really important for us to look at that, not just be like, well, everyone around me is doing the same thing, so why bother? And really question, is that really how you want to show up? And do you need a different support, different role model, different kind of community, and find strength there?
I love that, Joanne. And 2 episodes ago, Joanne talked all about intentional pit stops. And don't forget to listen to that one if you haven't already, because when we talk about quiet quitting, sometimes it's about your tank being depleted. And Joanne talked all about that, how you can create intentional pit stops to be able to connect better to your day. Joanne, I'm going to sum up some of these great points you made about quiet quitting. You talked about the definition where you can have disconnection emotionally and much less heart in your job or practicing medicine, and that it can impact how you are showing up, more checking the boxes and bare minimum versus really leaning in, which is so important in medicine. You talked about how it can show up as emotional detachment, less enthusiasm, and saying no, not out of healthy boundaries, but just because you're not caring about outcomes as much. And you talked about the impact of quiet quitting, how it can be show up as misalignment in how you're feeling about, maybe where your work goals are versus your work goals, or how you're having to do your job. And you also talked about what can we do, my favorite part of the episode as usual. And I love how you always weave in journaling, connecting with your why, and journaling can be a big part of that. And I want to also just highlight that we don't journal enough. I don't think we don't take time to reflect. You talked about reflecting, creating growth space, and whether that's at work or in your personal life, addressing your energy leaks, which we have talked about in prior episodes, and I always think is a great topic to talk about, and then redefining your success so that it feels more in alignment. And then also, as usual, what's your community support? Who can you ask for help? Joanne, such great information, and I would love to hear, do you have one more nugget of wisdom to share with our listener?
Yes. I know that a lot of times when we talk about this personal development and all these ideas, I know it happens to me that I get very enthusiastic and inspired when I'm learning, and then it's like pressure, like, oh my God, I have to do all the things. And I just want to remind yourselves that you don't go from surviving to thriving in a day. It's important to really take it day by day, and having the awareness and creating those small changes that can create bigger changes down the road. And to think of this quiet quitting, if you're feeling some of the things, if anything resonated with you, don't think of it as a failure, but then think of it as a signal that there's something that needs to shift. And the good news is that you have the power, you have the control to shift it. If you start small, you reconnect, you kind of refuel, reignite, and doing it in community, and having that honesty within yourself, and the results can be beautiful.
Thank you so much, Joanne. And with that, I would love for our listener, if we have had an impact on you. I know I just ran into someone, I'm visiting in Costa Rica. If you're on YouTube and you see a different background, just ran into somebody here. She's not a physician, and yet she's a businesswoman, and she wants to improve herself. And she gave me some great feedback on the podcast and how it's meaningful to her. And if you find value in what you're hearing, would you please go to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it and give it a rating? And if you can, give us a review, because we do read those reviews. They're all very meaningful. And when you listen and you give us a rating and review, it actually helps put us in front of more listeners, more women physicians who might be struggling, maybe more healthcare providers, more individuals that are struggling. And if we can help make their day a little bit easier, you can help get that message in front of them. So that's our big ask, and stay tuned because the next episode is coming right up.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.